Okay, let's look at the final section in the course. This is chapter 9, section 9.3, and we are solving quadratic equations by the quadratic formula. Okay, we've done quadratic equations before. They were things that look like ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, which is what I have right here. When we did these, we had to factor this, and then we set each factor equal to 0 and got 2 answers. Well, the problem with that is, first of all, we can't factor everything. Even if you knew all the different factoring types, and you know that we don't cover them all in this course, even if you knew them all, there are some things that just will not factor. And that means that you cannot use that method to solve the equations. That doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't answers, you just can't use that method. So in this class, the method we learned to solve those is the quadratic formula. Okay? So here it is stated. If ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, a, b, and c are just some numbers, you have to have this square, and you really want it like this. You need a 0 on one side, and you need it like this, okay? And just like before, it is going to be easiest if your a is positive. Now, we said that when we were factoring before. If we don't have a positive number there, all we have to do is to multiply everything by -1, and then we'll have what we need. Okay, so here's your formula. If you've got it put in this order, you should be able to read off your coefficients, a, b, and c, and then all you have to do is to plug them into this formula, and you'll have your answers. Okay, so this is x equals -b. Some people just say the opposite of b. So basically what this means is if your b is a 3, then you're going to write down -3 here. If your b is -3, you're going to write down +3. It's just going to have the opposite sign. Plus or minus. You know that when you have a square, you should get 2 answers. Sometimes we get the same answer twice, but you should get 2 answers. This is what takes care of that. You're going to calculate it first with a plus sign and then second with a minus sign. Or I guess you could do it either order, but you're just going to do it once each. And then the square root of, you have to make sure this radical bar covers all of this. B squared minus 4 times A times C. And we're going to know what A, B, and C are. And then you put the fraction bar underneath all of this, and that's over 2 times A. This radical bar needs to extend all the way. This fraction bar needs to extend all the way. If this part slips out from out of the fraction, then you don't get the correct answer anymore. Okay. Now, this formula can be sung to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. If we were in class, every time I've taught this up until now, I've said I will sing it once, and then if it ends up on YouTube, I will fail you. But I guess I'm going to have to not do that anymore because I'm about to sing it and I'm going to put it on YouTube. So here we go, once only. X equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, I did not learn it that way, but ever since somebody told me that, I can't write the equation down without hearing the song. Okay. This will be provided for you on your final exam, so you don't have to memorize it for this class. You will eventually have to memorize it, though, in later classes. So if you want to start to give it a try now, it's a good idea. Okay, so let's look at our first problem. We have it in the right order. We have our square, our p, and then our regular number equal to 0. Remember, that's a 1 right there. Until you get really good at this, you want to take the time and say what your A, B, and C are. A is your coefficient of your square, so A is 1. B is the coefficient of your regular variable, so it's -4. And C is your constant. So I know my A, B, and C. Now I'm going to use the formula, which I have written on a note card, so I can just drop it down. So my variable. Here it was x, here it's p, so p equals negative b. The opposite of b, this is a negative 4, so I write down a positive 4. Plus or minus the square root of, I'm not going to write my radical bar until I write everything down. It makes it easiest to make sure it goes all the way. B squared, that's negative 4 in parentheses squared minus 4 times A is 1, times C, that's 4. Now I extend my radical bar, and this is all over 2 times A, and my A is A1. So now it's just arithmetic. I'm going to start out working inside the radical. This underneath the radical is actually has a special name, and it tells us a bunch we're going to talk about in a bit. This is, I'm just going to recopy 4 plus or minus the square root of. Negative 4 in parentheses squared is positive 16 minus 4 times 1 times 4 is 16. Don't forget to use your order of operations. In the bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? When we're doing our order of operations, our first step is parentheses. That's any grouping symbol. We've talked about several times how the fraction bar is a grouping symbol. Well, a radical is also a grouping symbol. We need to do all these calculations before we add or subtract. So this is 4 plus or minus 16 minus 16 is 0. Now the square root of 0 is 0, so I have 4 plus or minus 0 over 2. Now technically what we have here is we now have two problems. We have p is equal to 4 plus 0 over 2, and we have p is equal to 4 minus 0 over 2. But of course, adding and subtracting 0 doesn't change anything. So I have 4 over 2, which is 2, and I have 4 over 2, which is 2. I got my two answers, which is what I expect, but I got the same answer twice. So we would just normally say our answer is 2.